Yo, what's up?
Yo, what's up?
Dave. What's up, Dave? Chilling.
Hold on.
What's the latest?
Did you watch that video that I'm not sure who was recommending it today, but Dave Murphy mirrored it on his channel, which isn't necessarily the best promotion, but but it was actually pretty good. I haven't watched all of it yet, but interesting stuff.
Yeah, I saw the video, but I haven't really seen it. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
Saorsa or Saorsa, the guy's name.
yeah. I went to the original channel and just watched it there instead of at Dave Murphy's. Um, yeah, interesting. Some interesting stuff. I guess. I mean, he claims to be. It seems like he knows what he's talking about as far as navigating. He does his own captaining of ships and seems pretty knowledgeable. I mean, he could be a real deep fake and really good at it. I mean, as far as his like overall like uh, AE type map promotion in a way. He's saying the AE map's intentionally wrong, but he's also going along with the idea that the north is with the magnetic mountain. That's the center. So either he's unaware of there being two poles, or maybe two poles still works into some of the stuff he's talking about. Because still, everywhere out from north on the two pole maps, south with the magnetic declination works that way, regardless if it's the center or not. So you'd still have everywhere out from north being south and everywhere out from south being north if you follow the magnetic field lines. But he goes into a lot of detail with Roberto Monti map, the one with all like the dragons and the creatures and stuff on it. A
Yeah,
really cool one. Yeah, it's kind of like an AE style layout, but he's talking about like some of the stuff in there. It's like actually, like he shows like a skull of a cyclops. And he's like the cyclops is on here because he's talking about a cyclops. And there's also a skull of a unicorn you might have seen before, and he's like, the unicorns are on there because they're unicorns. Like these things actually existed, as well as giants. That's why they're on the map. Um, but he's also he does a lot of like analysis of that map with the current map and lining up like the old map with where they would be on the current standing of what we have with where California is. And he says California was a country that actually did break off from that same area where California is now. And you can see where the label is. The California inland is this little like thing that comes down like it does now, and that's like on the inside of where this con what he called it was supposedly a country called California, right there on the west coast of where America is, but it was called the country of California, and that totally broke off along with a lot of other areas in what was a mini ice age. And it makes a lot of sense what he's saying. Like there was a mini ice age from this day to this day, from from the 1500s, and you can see everything was wiped out as far as all the um, you know empires that we had going, and all the um, you know things that you can see historically were ended, like the Ming Dynasty and all these things. Like it's almost like he says that they probably had AI, before the mini ice age, and that these things are all kind of like you have to ask the right questions to get it to talk about the mini ice age and how that contributed to the starvation and famines and all the basically a reset. But it makes a lot of sense if that were the case, because people just couldn't survive the mini ice age that happened. But there was enough people that were smart enough to keep the technology, and whatever they did, if they hit underground or other lands or whatever. But he kind of confirmed some of the other lands too that would be on the outskirts of where the known area we have. Pretty good. I mean, it's worth watching, I think.
yeah. I kind of skimmed through it just to see what the content might have been like, but I haven't really watched it. It's on my watch later list. Uh, That's
Yeah, I knew what we're
interesting,
talking
huh?
about. I think more people should watch it and talk about it, regardless of what they think.
Who is this guy? Is he some like?
Yeah, that's the other thing. He's like out of nowhere. It's like he's been saving up. It's kind of like reminds me a little bit of like the way that um, uh, Iwar Anand came out of nowhere with like this huge amount of information and then like, just dropped it. He's only got one video on his channel and that's it. It's like he's been saving up all this to make like the epic video and just dropped it with no other content or any of that, along those lines. He says if you can get certain amount of like, he's like, you're not going to get permission to go to certain areas in Antarctica. Um, if you actually get the permission without lying and trying to go about it in a way that you're not going to get it. But if you did, I would fund the whole thing. So it's I don't know. I don't know what to think of that, but he's like, I'll fund the whole thing and actually, captain the vessel to get you there. So I don't know if he's going with the Antarctica surrounding us completely, or I mean, whatever they're calling Antarctica, because he's also pointing out that what they're calling Antarctica now is where it is, but that's what they're calling Antarctica. And then he's talking about these other areas that are down from the areas we know of that could be lined up with areas that we now call Australia or such and such. I haven't gotten through the end of it yet, but definitely some content worth taking from it that there are interesting points. And yeah, it's weird that he came out with this like out of nowhere. But his discernment and the way he talks about it, like he just starts off with, if you haven't figured out that we're not on a spinning ball, I'm not going to waste your time. I'm not going to waste a lot of time going through any of that. It's obvious by now to anybody that paid attention that's where it's not a spinning ball. But I can prove to you these things, and he starts going through each and every part of where certain countries were and how the mini ice age affected it, and that all seems pretty sound. But he's using the Urbano Monti map as his like basis for a lot of this, and he says that he's navigated a lot of these areas by ship, and he doesn't use it as like a standard to follow, but he's like he can confirm a lot of this map is true from what he's done with sailing as far as the areas go. And he talks about star forts and star forts and some of these things that you can see today that were accurate on that map. Definitely worth watching for content. Very interesting. I'll put the link in the chat for anybody that's listening that hasn't seen it yet.
Yeah, man. No, the California thing is interesting. It does seem like where all the fertile farmland is in the middle might have all been underwater, which would have separated it from the rest of the United States. So yeah, it could have been its own country. Now, is this guy talking all about like in like the old world kind of concept of it that we were reset? Is that what he's
Well, no, whether it was man-made or not is a question, but basically the volcanic activity, there was a lot of earthquakes and a lot of volcanoes went off, which covered the sky with, no sun. Basically, we had no sun for a certain period of time, and there was about, 150 years of very harsh weather conditions.
Yeah. And then it's interesting. Is he trying to sail to some of the land that's on that Urbano Monte map? Is he trying to sail there himself?
That's one of the proposals in the beginning of it. It seemed like reminded me of this guy. I don't know if you remember. There was this weird guy that talked about going down to Antarctica and trying to gather money up for it. He was just a troll, but he was actually turned out to be really funny because I looked at his channel and then that's gone too now. But he was doing some like other trolling with some open mic stuff that I couldn't even begin to explain. But there was I think that woman that did the Sun and Moon channel had him on, and he was doing some weird, like showing his ship, and I don't know. Anyway, there's that guy that did the whole gathering money to take a plane ride, and he took a bunch of people's money and then disappeared too. Remember that?
Greater Sapien, that guy?
Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that might be the case when I heard, the beginning of it, as far as like, getting a crew together or some sort. But that it doesn't seem like that's his goal. He's just trying to show what he knows, as far as I can tell. And I'm almost like two-thirds of the way through.
But he doesn't.
Definitely interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate kind of the review on it because I haven't really checked it out yet, but I had seen it. It was kind of like on my queue of things to check out. I just didn't know if it was kind of like, repeating other information or whether it was anything new. 'Cause,
Definitely a different take on it. It's this map here. I'll put it in the chat. This Urbano Monte map or whatever that has like the dragons and the stuff like that on it. This one.
so he's not going dual pole, as far as you can tell.
That's what I'm saying. Well, he talks about at the beginning the AE map's purposely not the right map. But then he talks about some of these areas that are like out from the center, kind of like an AE map style. So I haven't gotten to the very end to know exactly what he's trying to say. But he's saying there is no ice wall, is his point so far. And to see the dual pole could still work with the outer lands, because there's lands like even he says there's got to be some land like up north of north and east of east and west of west and south of south. All these areas that are right outside the little area we're within. Why wouldn't there be more land? But if the sun only goes so far, then you have to assume there'd probably be some ice somewhere. It's not like the sun reaches infinitely.
Is that why everybody wants to ridicule it and say Pac-Man? Because there's actually more land there and they're just subconsciously trying to
Could be, yeah.
obfuscate from there's more land or the places they think there should be a Pac-Man?
Well, yeah, for people that know it's a two pole and are trying to hide it, it could be. And yeah, then there's a cog disk that kicks in with anybody that's a flat earther automatically, because it's like, wait, you're showing me a globe here. It looks like a globe. It looks like a flat globe. What are you trying to do? You trying to get me back on the globe by taking that step back to the two pole or something? But then why would that be the case when you got like the sun setting south of west and then sun setting north of west? It can't be going in a circle. I mean, that's regardless of TFE. That's already established if anyone looks at the sunset, right? It can't be going in just one direction, just with the sunsets. We already know it's not just going in a circle.
Yeah. No, I hear you. That's always been a like an unresolvable issue with that AE map concept is the arc of the sun in the south. Yeah, the rising south of east and setting south of west.
That's all you need. I mean, it's going opposite direction in the winter. That's why we have winter. That's why we have shorter days. Because it goes the other way for a while. And it comes back up and it's right above you. You don't need TFE. Any of that, all that. I mean, it's stupid that we haven't gotten there ourselves. All right, until like the whole hoopla of TFE. To be honest, we weren't worried about the GPs enough, or some of the nautical information that anyone can get just from looking at the almanac. Anyway, interesting. I was hearing some of the talk earlier with people saying people shouldn't speculate like about the gravity with the electrostatics. Well, I don't think Witsit was ever saying anything about it's proven to be electrostatics, and to bring that up in a debate is fine. To say, look, here's another option for gravity. It's just an option. He wasn't trying to say he proved it. I think speculation about the ether is also warranted, because there's interferometry and the Michelson-Morley is so important to the discussion. If you don't know what the ether is, as far as the discussion goes, and how it led to what we call special relativity, and the denial of the ether is what the whole globe hinged on. Without that context, and to just say speculations, off the table, and the ether can't even be mentioned. Like, that was like a turning point for a lot of people that saw, what the hell are we doing here? Why can't we talk about things? Why are we being threatened off of a channel for just mentioning the ether? That's where the fucking eyes should be open. And a lot of people were open to that at the time. We're like, wait, what's going on here? Why are they saying you can't say something about a topic that's important to the whole discussion, regardless of whether you think it's a belief or not?
Yeah, isn't there kind of, without naming names, there's like kind of one group that tends to be that anti-ether, and then the people that kind of surround
Yeah.
them. Isn't it only those guys, pretty much?
Well, they influenced a lot of people to
Yeah.
just assume that what they're saying is that means that Whitsit's a liar and Whitsit is, speculation should never be allowed. And like, what? You can't speculate. How do you get anywhere if you're not speculating? It's not making claims. As long as you say you're speculating.
Yeah, but some of the stuff Witsit
Anyway,
had brought up, like, I mean, he wasn't just saying, hey, this is just all speculation. There were certain components, because I know the combo you're talking about, and I know what you're referring to. And in terms of talking about some of the electrostatics, that's I'm just saying it's not entirely speculation. Like it may be
yeah,
partially but it's bringing certain
exactly.
real things in, and then, alluding towards another paradigm or
Yeah,
another way that it can be occurring rather than the mainstream. Yeah.
yeah. Actual demonstration, whether it's proof or not, wasn't even the. Yeah, here's something that we can show happening with just reversing the electrostatics. We got the Van Graph generator, which isn't proof, but it shows an effect, and we have a cause, and that's more than you could say for your gravity with your you know torsion bar. It doesn't even have a cause and all that. So yeah, there's I don't know. I just thought that was interesting that a lot of people haven't been a little more open minded to some of these things they're put in context, right? It seems like there's this kind of like, even with the two pole, same thing. Like, a lot of the reactions, are we can't speculate or we can't have. I think people have doubled down on, like defending the idea that it could still be an AE map with the personal dome or whatever your reasons are that you think the 24-hour sun could happen with the flat Earth. And now you've defended that. And now if you consider a two pole, it's like you're going against what you defended. And it's the same kind of cog dis that we were calling out normies for without considering the flat Earth. Like they won't even open the or look at the video because then it might threaten what they already think about the flat Earth, which is the exact opposite of what they did to get to flat Earth. You know what I'm saying? Did I
Why
cut
is it
out?
the opposite? No, no, I got
Well,
you.
no, like how the cog just kicks in with like a normie that won't even open the flat Earth video because it's one of those things that they almost fear is true, so they can't look at it in case it is true, so they can keep their already held beliefs that feel safer. But then it's like the same, like flat earthers are doing the same thing with the not considering the two pole. They won't even open the dual pole flat Earth video because that might threaten what they already think about the flat Earth. In the same way the ballers were doing with the cog just kicking in, just not even opening a flat Earth video to even consider it, like we all
Oh,
did
I
it
see.
to begin with.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, something that's different than their current understanding, and then would conflict with it. Yeah,
Yeah,
because there has been these like mantras, or that people have said, oh, there isn't a South Pole, or you know, a lot of those factors of
right,
the South Pole.
exactly. I mean, and there is like the Urbano map, Monty map, and a lot of these other maps, like the Gleason's map, things that are were put in our face, which is one of the things that guy says in the beginning of his video. Like it was heavily pushed, this Gleason map. Um, you know, I wouldn't say that even flat earthers say they believe in it, but it's just that is the image that's been put in a lot of people's heads. And it's like, if you got to go dual pole, then it's another like level of, consideration. It's like the no planes thing almost, to make a comparison. Like, you're like a 9/11 truther, and like you saw all the different things about how the plane had some kind of like like rocket thing that broke the thing open, and like you could see the outline of the plane, and all these things that were like going along with the plane theory. And then to think there's no planes is like another step into the idea that you were wrong twice, so you can't even consider it, that kind of thing. Or that the 9/11 truth movement was all controlled opposition from the start. And that's another level to the idea that, like, wait a minute, those were my heroes that were telling me the truth about 9/11. You're saying they were paid to be the controlled opposition? I can't consider that. Get out of here, you know?
Yep, it's like it goes in layers, like with people's sort of what people are told or what people cling on to, even if they haven't verified it. Because you got people like even, well, they're just even defending something that they really haven't verified. They haven't verified themselves because the kind of it is true that that flat Earth like AE map thing kind of did like it was attempted to be branded on everyone who either questioned the globe or said that or had like a stationary planar Earth cosmology. Like that was sort of trying to be associated with all of it. And then yeah, I see what you're saying about the dual pole part of it. Like people, well, because it's another layer that you'd have to be like, oh, okay, potentially that you got duped again. Like the idea that we got duped by the globe, and then some people also got duped by the AE map as being the flat Earth or the correct map. And I'm saying if that's the case, then you have to go through another. Like you thought you already got rid of the globe deception, and that or some people had thought maybe they had found it or they were onto it. And from the perspective that that AE map is also false, and it's actually a two-pole planar Earth, which is a much more complicated, nuanced system to understand. It's not just as easy necessarily as, oh, the AE map's already out there and I can already make coffee mugs and t-shirts. I always say that, the coffee mugs and t-shirts, but it's like not something that you could instantly just, latch onto. And it takes it takes another level of being open-minded to get to what is actually true.
Yeah, and even the consideration that there could have been controlled opposition within flat Earth that were pushing that, right? That were pushing the AE map, or set up to go against the AE map after TFE, whoever that could be. At some point 10 years later, you're going to be the guy that goes against TFE. Who knows how deep it goes? But all those considerations have to come into play when you're like, wait a minute, what was okay? So I've said this since 2017. Flat Earth is a psyop based on the truth, right? Because they're running it as a psyop, regardless if they rolled it out or not. It seemed like they definitely took the reins and got ahead of it. And like I don't want to go into my whole thing. Like eventually, the only reason that makes sense for me, because it's so obvious. At least I thought it was going to be to more people, that it would be something that they wouldn't put out there unless they were planning on using it at some point, as a truth with package of lies to go with it, which kind of is what they've done so far, to a certain extent. If the AE map and people are pushing that, and some of the other things, even like Mark Sargent's bringing up outer ponders and setting up those narratives. Same with Flat Earth Dave. Even those, the flat out truth ones that Witsit was in, whatever you call it, flat out. You know what I'm talking about. What was it called? There was like three of them that it came out with. What's his name? Not to say that they're all controlled op or anything. I'm just saying that it was almost like an advertisement for the outer ponders. Not to say there's not outer ponders, but that idea of the outer ponders, and then maybe possibly it being the aliens all along with our ancient ancestors, giving us the new platform that we should have these smart cities and whatever their supposed area is going to be like a goal of our society to follow in the footsteps of, or whatever they're going to do. Like it's just open for all those kind of possibilities. Regardless, it's just that it seems like there could be that kind of thing going on, and why wouldn't they? I mean, if flat Earth is as powerful as it could be, or as we've speculated, with everybody finding out that's the truth, then maybe the powers that be wouldn't have the power. So if that's how important it actually could be, then why wouldn't they have some kind of controlled opposition along the way? And the guy in that video calls out that a lot of these conspiracy theorists are basically either non-player characters, AI, or people paid to push a certain narrative that's 5% truth and then 95% bullshit. And what he says about Tartarians is that the Tartar, and he goes into like a pretty good defense of this, or a pretty good theory about it. The Tartars are basically what we know, like they're a special breed of people of Asian descent that we know as Native Americans, not Indians. Indians are from India, but these Native Americans that are on this land that live in teepees are basically what the Tartarians are. And they're not the builders of this old world, but that's what now they've been labeled as, which is like the joke on us because they're the fucking people in the teepees. They're not the one building the buildings.
Huh. And those came over from like Russia area, like
Russia,
over
yeah.
near Alaska?
That, from that area, yeah. Basically what we call Russia now, of Asian descent. But he said they're a special breed of people, but of Asian descent.
No,
But
I've
they're
wondered
like
about
their
this,
own.
like, yeah, it's like how do you meld like the Tartaria old world stuff with like the Native Americans and the other tribal people? Like how
Yeah.
does that interface go down, you know?
Well, he was saying that the old world, was built by, advanced group of people that aren't Tartarians, even though the Tartars maybe existed alongside with them. But the mini ice age is the breaking point, and that's what they used as a reset, whether it was intentional or not. As far as the earthquakes and the volcanoes, that's pretty. I mean, whether you call it natural or not, they could have done that intentionally. But then there's also some of the stuff about the cities being burned that he calls out as not natural. Like these are war areas. These aren't just like you know brick buildings that are being melted. Like somehow somebody tipped over a lantern in a barn and Chicago went up in flames. Those stories are obviously not true. So they were clearing away some of these areas not only to get rid of the old world tech, but to use the foundation for the reset. Get rid of some of these areas and then you know boost the economy, bring in some of the incubator baby type stuff. Um, and he goes into a whole like thing about the reset and how that you can look in like some of these insane asylums that were these old world buildings that were like huge, amazing buildings. Like, why would they need to like care for these people that were supposedly insane? Like, that doesn't make any sense. That they were worried about curing people's insanity at that time, and these were probably like breeding facilities.
Yeah, that stuff's wild, dude, to think about that they were like repopulating and putting people through some kind of weird, psychological testing to see if they would either go to the insane asylum or be let out into the population to repopulate. Like that whole idea of those theories are pretty interesting and wild, but it does align with the fact that we have such a disconnect from our history. Like we have to go to history class and learn a bunch of stuff that we're told, like instead of just knowing it in our family lines. It's pretty.
Well, there was a lot of different conditions. Like somebody DM'd me about that video saying that his grandpa, his great grandpa, like was his mother was poor and he got put in an orphanage because if you weren't able to like support your, I mean, it was kind of like what we're leading towards now, to be honest, in a weird, scary way. Like they have a world war for a reset and everything's a wash, and no one has any money, so you're forced to be in the military. And if you have a baby, you don't have any money to support them, then you get your baby taken away from you. And that's where a lot of the orphans came from. It's just like the mother that didn't have any means to support their children. So you had the option of like your baby starving or like, this facility that actually feeds them. And then there's also the incubator, crossbreeding or whatever they could do with that, the test tube baby type stuff. which is the tech from the old world that they didn't let anyone know about. But you could find it at the Old World Fair. There's lots of information about. You can see that that was a display that they had at the fairs, at the World Fairs. He wasn't saying they're Cabbage Patch Kids in the same like literal way, but that's what they were called. Funny that they had that whole thing about the Cabbage Patch Babies, though. You know, because it was a takeoff on that. Because that's how they advertised them back in the day with like the Cabbage Patch. You know, like get your baby. We grew the babies for you out of the ground, but it was kind of a joke on like the advertisement for it, even though they were incubator babies. But like, come get your baby, and that was kind of like a more palatable way of advertising it for it rather than showing like the incubator with like a baby grown from scratch. Kind of like the stork brought the baby, you know, like it's an unbelievable story, but it's easier to take in a kind of funny way than whatever the truth is. But then they had the Cabbage Patch Kids that people were literally fighting over. Like, get yours before it's gone. And that's how they used to advertise the babies. Like, get the baby before we run out of babies. Get your baby.
Oh yeah,
And
they
then
went
they
all
had,
out on that.
and then they made the psyop. Not it was a psyop, but it was like a real like demand for Cabbage Patch Kids, where mothers were fighting each other for the last Cabbage Patch Kid in the same exact way. Which is like, you know, obviously their like little nod to like history that nobody knows about the truth about.
That's pretty intense, dude. If they did that on purpose with the Cabbage Patch Baby thing as like an
Yeah, well,
agenda.
why would they be called Cabbage Patch Babies? That's what they did with the incubator babies. They were called Cabbage Patch or something, Cabbage Patch Babies. So that's obviously where they got the name from. And then, you know, it just happens to be that people were fighting over them the same way they were advertising, get your babies before they're gone or whatever. Who knows? I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's all very interesting. Not to say it's proof of anything, but I mean, coincidences are very unlikely like that. But yeah, he goes into that whole thing, and the way he talk. I mean, he doesn't sound like he's bullshitting, and he's talking about, you know, how when the ice thawed, you know, there was Mexico City was basically all that Mexico was at the time. Like Mexico City was like this amazing city, and it was like in the middle of the water with the temple on top, and you know, there's something about that with making like a physical temple that it brings the water up from the ground. Did you ever see that guy in Chicago that had the pyramid house and all the water came up and the moats of water all around his house? He started with like growing plants inside like a pyramid type structure, and he noticed that like the water would just like come straight up from the ground. So there's something about the structure of a pyramid that like somehow brings the water up out of the ground. And they were selling the water at that pyramid house. It's in Wadsworth. You can look it up, Wadsworth, Illinois. It got burned down not too long ago, but they're rebuilding it. I don't know if it was a sabotage or it was an actual accident, but you can see the water just surrounds it. He's got this Egyptian statue out in front, and it's an amazing story that I can't believe more people haven't talked about. I've always brought it up, but it's an amazing thing. And they were making beer with the water and selling the water, and there was like something about the water that people thought was like special.
Wow.
But if that is the case, and you could build a structure and you could just like that would make a lot of sense if that the aquifers underneath and how that could have been used like as a power generator, the way Tesla did with high tower. Water underground is part of the key of it. It's a pyramidal structure.
That is definitely interesting. I mean, I would have some thoughts on that too, but I wanted to ask you just before I forget, with like the idea of the reset and the dual pole, how do you think those play in together? Like, do you think that they did the reset to hide the actual dual pole planar Earth and then replaced it with like the globe and the AE map as the two kind of psyop Earths, basically? Is that how you see it in terms of
Who
that?
knows? Who knows? Seems like they had a lot of old world tech that they kept for themselves, and part of making sure that nobody was able to come on to the obvious um, idea that we are an electromagnetic world. And if you were able to understand the ether and electromagnetics and ether polarization and manipulating the forces that be, you know we have to have like the quote unquote smartest amongst us believe in a psyop brilliant enough to keep them from looking into like the obvious, which is what it's done. Basically, it's crippled us intellectually.
Yeah, bendy warpy space time.
Yeah,
Huge
and make the
distraction.
math and make the math so complicated and so crazy, so convoluted that anybody that gets through that part of it is gonna like never consider that it could be anything else but the, the kinematic equations that they had to get through to even understand or even get to that past the course to get onto the job that they have. Then once they have the job, even if they realize it, they're not going to like give up their $200,000 job to be a whistleblower, which does nobody any good. Whistleblowing doesn't do anybody any good. And they make sure to have examples of people trying that fail, whether that's true or not. So no one's going to even consider that would be something that would work. So you know what I'm saying? Like once you have the golden handcuffs, you have the money. You're not going to like think about trying to tell the truth to people, if even if you figure it out. But most of them don't even consider it, or the cog just kicks in because then you're like, oh wait, I'm participating in something that's not true. It can't be. There's even stories of people committing suicide, like the guy that I forget who it was talking about his like grandpa that worked with satellites and he realized the truth and ended up committing suicide because he realized that his whole life was kind of a lie. Not that satellites don't exist. Real satellites do exist, but the way that they deploy them, that's really one of the compelling things that E1 talks about. With like they use the different charge for the northern hemisphere than the southern hemisphere to deploy these satellites, and they're using the electromagnetic field to make them circle around above us. That's how they do it, but they have to claim that they're falling so they don't have to worry about how they have no fuel, right? They're just perpetually falling around us, and that's why they don't need it, because it's a gravitational field. But if you look at the gravitational field, they're just showing you the electromagnetic field with a different interpretation. It's all electromagnetism, which makes way more sense than gravity with masses pulling and not forces and all the jargon that has to go into defending that idea. It's a force, but it's not a force. But it is, but it has to be this big and this far away for it all to make sense. But it's not at all like that, really. But I mean, God, it just makes everybody so retarded sounding, even though that they don't even realize it.
Well, yeah, the outer space
Relativity.
thing is it's like a distraction from what the sky is, and then the Earth claiming it's a globe and rotating is like a distraction from what the actual Earth is. So they get everyone distracted with like the sort of astrophysics, outer space physics, and then going off of like only local physics, and then kind of selling the globe as the like that they have that part solved instead of leaving it all open for people to actually tap into what might be going on with the sky and the ground, like the actual truth of it.
Yeah, and if these are real fields that they're actually detecting and using, and they're bendy fields, they're bendy warpy fields that we're talking about. Well, we'll just call it bendy warpy space time instead of an actual electromagnetic field. that warps, and we'll use the warping and the bending of the field as a way of saying we're on a curving ball. We'll just exchange those things, because you look at it, exactly what the fields do is they bend like a ball, north to south, and around the north and around the south with the electromagnetic field that the stars and the sun and the moon and the planets ride on. And that explains why, they have to say it's like this mass attracting mass tethering idea, because you don't need to, it's circuits. If it's in a circuit, then you don't have to fuel it, because it's just doing it on its own, because it's a circuit.
Couldn't you get
Not
free
just if
energy
a
from
circuit
that?
doesn't have a power source, but I mean, there has to be a power source for it all. But
If you can tap into something like that in the sky, like you're talking about, wouldn't that essentially be like free energy at that point? So you
well,
think that
yeah. I mean, you can get the ionic energy. I mean, those things you can see. That's the other thing that video goes into, and with the steeples. I mean, we've heard this from Ewar and other people with like the cathedrals, a cathode. And you think cathedral just happens to be the name that they call it, and it happens to be so close to cathode? They were tapping into it with these crosses on top, right? These gold crosses that had the mercury. That if you spin mercury with a charge, you get a field, and that's how they were. They were working as antennas, and those crosses weren't a symbol of any kind of religious sort, but that's how they were reappropriated. But they were just there to collect the ionic energy or the ether, or whatever you call it, using mercury. And then the red bricks were acting like batteries. All the red brick buildings were like storage. And supposedly you can use red brick to this day to store energy like a battery.
Well, hello.
Who's that?
It's a random.
So you think they were storing energy in the pyramids to link those two?
I don't know. I don't know what the pyramids would make sense the way it was so thick, and like the either a power like generator or source of some sort. Yeah. And then they took the gold cap off, so it was probably not. As soon as you take the lime and the gold cap off, then you don't have it's deactivated basically. They took all the
Lime
old
and
tech and
gold.
just deactivated it all, and supposedly they put the glass inside, like all of the stained glass windows were just like the structures that the harmonics would go through, and it would structure the sound waves that were a healing vibration for the outer areas. And then when they put the glass in the stained glass windows, they basically dampened or muffled or closed off the circuit. The ability for the whatever the organs were doing to heal the city is the idea through frequency.
Wow.
Heal the city.
Well, healing frequencies was the idea behind it.
Hmm.
I don't know who that is, but you have to watch Ewar Anand's stuff to get some of that information. And then this video I just put in the chat talks about the same thing. I'm not making a
Oh,
claim about it. I'm just saying these are the people. These are the ideas people are talking about.
yeah, who's the Unity Project guy? Is he around here?
I don't know who you're talking about.
Project Unity.
What's that?
Let's see.
But Dave, just another thought I had, like linking all this with the dual pole. Do you think that they've purposefully been trying to hide that because of the electrical circuit nature of the sky? and even linking to free energy. That like because the globe and the AE map both try to distract from that. Like the globe obviously makes the sky way out there, light years away. We're just on this ball, so unless you could somehow try to get some free energy system from the rotating ball, the rotating globe, there's nothing you can really do with the sky. And then the AE map obviously kind of has the one pole and doesn't really have the second pole. There's just kind of a thought in the back of my mind. Do you think that there's like a concerted effort to kind of obfuscate or hide from humanity that the sky itself is a circuit?
Most definitely. Same with the ether, whatever you call the ether, electromagnetic, it's all kind of the same thing. It's kind of interchangeable. Electromagnetics and ether and the dielectric with the magnetics and how that creates the structure with the counter space and space and you know, the ether polarization and the founders of our electromagnetic um, society or electromagnetic reality being like Steinmetz and some of these people that were like the founders of all of our electromagnetism and stuff that they're not even taught in the schools as anybody. Like, why would we not even know who Steinmetz is until we have to learn about him from somebody actually looking into the real history of things?
Not only that, the Bible doesn't say that the planets and the stars and stuff are on a path. They say they're on a circuit. Specifically, they use the word circuit.
Interesting. That's
Mhm.
interesting. I didn't know that.
So what do you mean? What is that? What is your point?
It's just an
Well, it doesn't
interesting
say orbit.
coincidence with
It
the
doesn't say
topic.
orbit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I mean, definitely. If it's an electromagnetic field, exactly the way it manifests, and there's a magnetic reading that we get with our compasses with something that's getting a reading from at the north, and then it goes from south to north, and there's some way of like it's all basically coupled. It would be the magnetic field on Earth coupled with the electromagnetic field in the sky in the exact same way that you can see that diagram lining up with the way we have our latitude longitude for two pole flat Earth, and that electromagnetic field coupled with the magnetic field doesn't work on a ball the same way. It wouldn't work. There was talking here the other day about the pendulum and how the pendulum would go the opposite direction, or it would process the opposite way in the south. You know,
Yeah.
like that right there shouldn't happen. If the ball's spinning in one direction, it has nothing to do. I mean, you can get away with like convincing people that the only reason that the stars seem to go the opposite way in the south is because you're now upside down on a ball, and somehow that makes sense to you. You can only go so far with that. Like if the stars are actually going the opposite direction, that doesn't work on a ball. If the pendulum's actually going the opposite, it's processing the opposite way. That it's like the opposite of the rotation. You can't have it like just because of this perspective idea that you're looking at it from the other direction, so it just seems like it's going the other way.
No, that's
That
not
only
why it
goes so far.
processes the other way. It processes according to the Coriolis effect, exactly why it does. And it
Same
works
with the
perfectly on
Coriolis
the ball.
effect.
It works perfectly on the
Same with the
ball.
Coriolis. You shouldn't have opposite
Yeah, but I
rotating
mean,
weather
yeah,
fields.
you can speculate on all these things that you think could happen or might happen, but you can't misrepresent what is actually factual in the model like that. You shouldn't do that.
What's the reason for the opposite rotating weather patterns in the south compared to the north for the Coriolis? What's the reason for that? What's the technical reason
Everything
that happens?
everything south of the equator is
Mm-hmm.
going to deflect to a left as you move
Mm-hmm.
away from your point. Everything in the north deflects to the right, and that's just the way it works.
Right, the weather patterns are actually going the opposite direction.
Doesn't matter which way they go. It's a matter of which way they rotate.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, we have like manifestations of stars going in the opposite direction, literally, and the sun going in the opposite direction, literally.
It's
How,
just
how do you
simple
how do you
geometry. It's just simple geometry. There's no more than that.
Well, how do you know that? I mean, you could say that's one, and you could. I mean,
Because
wait,
I
wait,
understand simple
left lane,
geometry.
right? Okay, left lane. Let's just say that there's like a possibility that the simple geometry makes sense, but then wouldn't it ever like behoove you to say, well, oh, it's either that or there's something going on that we're not sure. Like you sound like it is this simple geometry. I know for a fact it's that, rather than, well, one interpretation is the simple geometry of it. Another interpretation could be something about the literal opposite rotation being a manifestation of electromagnetic field in the same way we see that manifest. I mean, there's
Yeah,
both
but
possibilities you put on a table as like, I don't know for a
no,
fact
no, I could,
necessarily, but
I
there's
could
this
show it
interpretation that I
to
think is
you.
true.
You just go on and on though. I can show it to you. I can put a camera on a ball in a room with lights around it, and I can demonstrate it exactly the way it is.
I know that. Saying that only goes so far.
Well,
We have okay.
that's my
Let's just say
interpretation of
let's
it.
just say that's one interpretation, right? Now let's just say the stars are literally going in the opposite direction and they converge and diverge from the northern stars, and it actually is an electromagnetic field instead. That's
They
another
don't, but they don't
possibility, right?
converge. They don't actually converge and diverge.
Well,
No,
that's what you say though.
I've measured them.
No,
They don't.
there's
They
you
don't
can see that they
diverge and
do.
convert. No, they
They do.
don't. I've measured
You
them.
can see it.
Measure them.
I
Measure
mean, if you
them.
get like an ooper, if you get like an
The
ultra
north
wide
from the
angle
south
lens, then yeah,
do
you'll get.
converge and there's northern stars that get further away from the southern stars after they go through the prime meridian parallel. Then when they get out to the west far enough, they start diverging from each other.
No,
That
they
you can
don't.
that's
Which
measurable.
ones?
That
Which ones?
they don't
Let's measure
now
them.
in the north and in the south, you would only read one at a time, and everything is in relation to the prime meridian. So
Well, which
Well,
you're
ones?
going to
We
look
can
at the
here's
look
what
up.
you
star's
can
We
do.
can look
measurement.
them up.
It's
We
how
can look
many
them up.
degrees off from the prime meridian in the north, or how many degrees off from the prime meridian in the south. That's how
No,
you
here's
would
what you
get your
could do.
star readings. But you don't
Here's
have
what
any
you
in
could
the
do.
south or the north that diverge from each
He
other. It's
literally
the
doesn't
southern
stop
star
talking.
field
It's
from the
crazy.
northern star
Mm,
fields that converge and diverge. I'm just making sure you know
okay.
what I'm
You've
talking
you've
about.
talked for like an
It's the
hour and a half
northern and
straight
southern
without
stars that
breaking.
converge and diverge,
Okay.
not any stars within the north or within the south that converge and diverge, just the northern from the southern.
Tell us the
And you can
stars.
see it happening.
Tell us the stars. We can go look it up.
Okay.
Tell us which ones and how much they diverge. We got an astronomical almanac. We'll look it up.
You can look it up, man.
He's saying the north ones
I'm on my
diverge
phone.
from the
I'm driving.
like the stars at 20 north diverge from the ones at 20 south, for example. That's what you're saying? Which is the case. Even
Yeah.
on, I mean, they have the explanation as to why that occurs on the globe because you're on a ball in which the small circle routes diverge. Because if you're 20 miles north of the equator on the globe, let's say, and you stay at 20 degrees north and you travel west, you have to turn to the right. You have to actually turn your vehicle to the right. If you're at 20 degrees south, same thing going west, you would have to follow 20 south to do a small circle route. You would also have to turn your ship to the left. So one of them turning to the right, one of them turning to the left, that is diverging. Now there's the explanation of, oh, you're on a ball and that's why it's happening because you're on an actual curved surface and the stars are out there versus over a planar surface. But the effect is the same. You're diverging from the north.
All that's true, but which star? Like the stars, like I don't think the stars do that.
No, you
I
can
could be wrong.
measure them. You can measure them. I promise you, you can measure them all through the night. You can pick a star, an obvious star, south of the celestial equator, so it's in the southern hemisphere, so to speak, and another star, Orion or whatever, a good, prominent star. You can measure the angle between those two stars all through the night from when they rise until they set, and they will not diverge or converge from each other.
Well, your promise doesn't really mean much. You have to show it. I showed you in
You're
the
the one that
chat.
made the
You can
claim.
see them
That's
converge.
something
made the
you can
You can
do.
claim.
take a regular shot. It has nothing to do with wide angle lens.
It's
Just
something you
look.
can
You
do,
can
though.
at the celestial equator. You can take a shot of the star trails from the north and the south, and you can see even within just one shot, without any wide angle lens or anything, they're deviating from each other.
No, you can measure it yourself. Me saying I promise is one thing. Me showing you, I guess I would have to show you on Stellarium, but you can do this in your backyard yourself.
All right.
It
Well, it
was your
doesn't matter.
claim. You're
You
the
can
one that
believe
made the
what you can
claim. So I
believe what
think
you want. You can believe what you want, but you can also believe what you see.
You can
show us
test it.
which stars. I mean, like, I'll believe it. I actually will believe it if you show me. But I need to know which stars, like which ones diverge, and how would I see it?
I'm in my car. I'm kind of driving too, so I'm not. I'm able to like give you each and I mean, you could get yourself a Weems and Plath Star Wheels. This is what you could actually order from Amazon, about $100, and they have the north on one side and the south on the other. But what my buddy E1's done is he's actually taken that information and given true star positions, and then shown how the GPS would line up in the south and the north, and those they have to be on like one continuous disk. Well, we at least can agree on that, right? If we're not on the ball spinning and it's the stars spinning above us, then they all have to be basically spinning together, right? Whether you think it's that way or not, but that's the way it would have to manifest on a flat Earth. You'd have two disks spinning above a flat Earth, or you're on a ball spinning within the star field. And all the stars are static, right?
Yeah, and all the stars will
It's
spin
one
at
way
the
or the other.
exact same consistent rate. They're not going to diverge.
No, they
Like
do
you
on the
said a
north
bunch
and
of
the
words,
south.
but
They do.
you didn't offer us anything
They
where we
do in
could
the
go
north and
observe
the
it other than
south.
order 2 discs off of Amazon. Like, give us something we can go outside and test.
Yeah, I'll definitely give you all that information. I can't right now, but I mean, I'm just asking if you agree that it would have to be either that there's two disks spinning with all the stars spinning, right, and they're converging and diverging over a flat Earth, or we're on a ball and the stars are much closer and it works that way, even though they're infinitely far away. Because
The
like the
stars don't
GIFs
work
that
on
people
flat Earth.
post,
Like,
I know
I don't
you
know.
think that, but it's like you know everything about the way flat Earth could work, which you don't.
No, I'm just saying, like the geometry of it just does not work out. You need like a personal
Doesn't
azimuthal
seem
dome of
to.
vision that
Doesn't
bends.
seem to,
Don't
right?
interrupt. Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt. But like you can't, like you have to have a personal azimuthal dome, something that's going to bend light, because it just cannot work. Like geometrically
On an
can't work.
AE map, on an AE
Well, on a
map,
dual pole is the same. Like I've sent you images of like you have the same problem on a dual pole where you look opposite directions to see the same star. You're still going to need the personal dome of vision to fix it.
that's what you think, but you haven't done the. I'll bring E1 in and we'll have a talk with E1, and he's got actually GPs for this. He says that I'll hang my hat on that. This is the way the stars work. And so he's pretty confident about that. But also he's shown me that this is like the Weems and Plath, which I just put in the chat. He's like, this would show you if you could put these discs next to each other, that the when you do your triangulation for these positions using the overlays and everything, and you put one star in the north compared to a star in the south, it's gonna have a difference in the way it is in relation to each other through the celestial equator. And then when it gets to the outskirts, they start to diverge from each other. That's just what the information, the data shows. You can actually look up in the almanac for that information too, which I can't show you particularly right now, but you could look that up for yourself. Take a known star in the south and a known star in the north and see if the almanac, not stellarium, if the almanac gives the GPs as different as far as their relation to each other. That would be one thing you could do
We're
on
not
your
talking about
own,
GPs.
or I could bring.
Oh, maybe I missed your point. You were saying that the GPs diverge, because that's a very
Yes.
different answer than whether the stars in the sky diverge.
Why would the GPs not diverge? I mean, why would it be the GPs diverging without the stars actually diverging?
Because that's the geometry of a ball. On flat Earth, I don't know. I couldn't begin to explain.
No, but on a ball, even if it was a ball, say you took a known distance between two places on Earth, and then you took another known distance that was the same distance from each place on Earth, and those GPs get larger, literally. It's not about the curving of the ball. I mean, I know that makes an excuse in your head, maybe, or somebody that wants to keep believing in the ball. But if it was like a known distance between two places on Earth, and then you compare the stars' GPs, and they're actually wider apart compared to where they were to the other known two places on Earth, that shows them closer together. That's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
like that. No, that's fine. But just when you look up in the sky, they don't diverge at all. Like that warrants an explanation. For the globe,
No,
that makes
you see
sense.
them
For flat Earth,
diverge.
it doesn't. No, you don't see them
Okay, wait.
diverge.
Okay, wait.
I'd put money down on that one. I think.
Okay, wait. Now, let me just
Yeah,
say
I
that.
would
Let me
too.
just ask you this. Okay, Finky, you seem to be a little bit more intellectually honest than others. I don't know how true that is, but you say you looking at the pictures I put in the chat just now. They
Oh
look
no.
like they diverge and converge, right? They're not. I'm not saying they do or don't, but you have to admit they at least look like they're converging and diverging, right? You could say wide angle lens or whatever, I think, but the images of the two star fields at the equator at least look like they're converging and diverging. We got stars going around in a circle around the north and around the south, and the circles just get bigger.
Yeah. So my argument, like what I would predict is that if you went out and you actually did what Left Lane said, you measured it, they don't diverge. This is an optical effect that you're using
Okay,
to
so
make it come.
you admit they look like they do.
They do.
They
In
do.
this picture, they definitely look like they're diverging.
That's a
Okay,
180
that's all I'm asking
degree
for. That's
observation,
all I'm
though.
asking for.
That's not just a wide angle. That's like a
Yeah, that's
180 degree view.
like a
No, there's
360
you don't
camera.
even need a wide angle lens. Like the third picture there, that's not a wide angle lens. That's just at the equator. You know, it doesn't even matter if it's wide angle. It's not going to give that effect
It
because it's a
is a
wide
wide
angle
angle.
lens.
That's
That's
definitely wide
definitely
angle.
a
Even if
wide
it's a
angle
wide
lens.
angle lens, it's not going to cause the stars to look like they're going the opposite direction
Oh,
because of a
yes, it
wide
will.
angle lens. You're just capturing more of the sky.
I mean, if you look at a wide angle lens, like the distortion in it, you'll see. In fact, I'll pull one up so you can see it. But it
It's a
definitely will
direct
make it look like it
example.
diverges.
It's a direct
Okay,
example
let
of
me
the
just say,
distortion that you get from a wide angle lens.
okay, let's just say, okay, if even if you think wide angle lens, or it could be that they're actually converging and diverging. It's one of those two you have to admit, right? It's either it looks that way because of some kind of weird effect of camera, or they're actually doing what they look like, right? One of the two.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I haven't thought about it that much, but I'd say that's probably true.
Yeah, it's one of the
Is he
two. Okay.
suggesting that two stars in the sky will converge and diverge over the course of the night? They'll get
Yes.
further apart or closer together. Is that what he's
Yes.
suggesting?
In the north
Yeah.
and the south, yes, that's what they look like, right? We can see that that's what they
No,
look like,
that's
whether it's a wide
nonsense.
angle lens or not. Whether it is a wide angle lens or not, that's to be determined. But that's
No,
what
the
they look
distance
like they're
between two
doing. Yeah.
stars, the distance between two
I
stars
know your
does
rhetoric.
not
I'm
change.
just saying it's either you're right or they're actually doing what they look like they're doing.
You do a long exposure on a equatorial tracking mount, the stars are not
With
moving around relative to one
with a
another.
I think if you used a rectilinear lens, you probably wouldn't get any divergence or conversion.
There's lots of them that are not wide angle lens that do the exact same things. Sorry, guys. I'll get those for you. I'm in the car right now.
That's all right. Be a safe driver. So I posted a ultra. This is like a fisheye lens, and you can see that the buildings appear to diverge and converge, even though I think we all know
That's a fisheye
inherently that
lens.
they don't. I know it's the fisheye is just an ultra wide angle lens. It's like so I'm giving you the extreme example so you can see. I would
Yeah,
contend that the
I
one you
understand that
showed.
effect. I understand that effect, but that's not. I mean, you can see even stellarium shows them converging
The
and diverging.
distances,
Well, it does
the
if you
distances,
if you zoom out in stellarium until your field of view is equivalent to an ultra wide angle lens, then they'll look like they diverge and converge. But they don't. If you actually go in stellarium and you go through the night and you just pull the value out. I'm a software engineer. I have software that does the astronomical almanac. We could pick any two stars, the two that you say are going to move, and then I'll run a program that just tracks their angular separation through the night, and you'll see they don't diverge.
the only time where there's going to be any kind of a change in the distance between the stars is when they approach the horizon and the ones near closer to the horizon start to get refracted.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's either that or they're actually converging and diverging, right?
No, because the stars at your zenith are never converging or diverging.
No.
They always
Well,
keep
they
the
look
same
like
distance to relative to
whether
one
you think
another.
it's a wide angle lens or not, they're either doing what they look like they're doing, or it's some kind of wide angle lens or refraction or whatever you want to say. It's one of the two, right? Finky at least agreed to that.
Yeah, it seems really obvious to me, but if you want to like hold that open that this isn't a wide angle lens and this is really what happens, like
If what you
but
said is
I would
true,
say
then
we could,
constellations would change shape throughout the night. Orion would look different depending on the time of day that it is. You know,
No,
Virgo,
no, you're talking about
all the constellations would look different because the stars would be,
no.
converging and
Wait,
diverging, right? Their
Jake.
distances would be changing relative
No,
to one another.
no, because the constellations are either in the north or in the south, right? Those constellations stay consistent with each other because
I'm
they're
sure there's
either in the
one.
north or in the south.
Well, I'm
But
sure
we
there's
don't have
one
a
that spans.
constellation.
I
We
mean,
don't have a constellation that.
the constellations are all in the ecliptic. They'd be directly overhead on the equator.
Okay, so you're saying there's a constellation that involves the northern stars and the southern stars?
Probably at some time of year because
No,
they do move. I don't know. I actually don't know for
there
sure.
isn't.
But
Constellations are either in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere. They don't overlap.
All the zodiac constellations are near the ecliptic. Like,
Doesn't matter.
I
I'm talking
understand.
about the northern compared to the southern stars. There's not constellations that are part of the northern and southern. So that wouldn't be the case.
What are you talking about? The ones on the equator involve some are in the north and some are in the south.
So you're saying
Of
there's
course
stars that
they
are in
do.
the southern field compared to the northern field that are part of the same constellation. That's not true. It's just not true.
If there's a constellation that spans the celestial equator, some of them are in
All the
the
zodiac
northern and some of them are in
constellations,
the
yeah.
southern.
All the zodiac
Yeah, but there's
constellations,
not.
all the zodiac constellations, like Leo, Virgo, and such. Some of the stars in that constellation are in the northern hemisphere, and some of them are in the southern hemisphere. Some
yeah,
of
Show
them
me
are
proof
north
of
of the
Ryan
that.
here, I got a
ecliptic.
list.
Some of
I've
them
got a
are
list.
north.
Show me
Some of
proof of
them are
that.
north. Some of them are north of the ecliptic, and some of them are south of the ecliptic.
Okay, show me some data that shows that that's the case.
Load it up in Stellarium and put yourself on Quito, Ecuador, and watch those constellations go over the sky.
It's just not. This is not true.
I've got a list: Orion, Aquarius, Pisces, Cetus, Virgo, Leo, Aquila, Serpens, Ophiuchus. I'd never heard of that one. Sextans, Monoceros, Hydra, Eridanus, and Pegasus. Those are all constellations that span the north and south. And so, to your point, the parts of it
Interesting.
that's
Well,
in
if
the
that
north
is
and the
the
part
case,
that's in the south.
then those would diverge and converge from each other if they converge and diverge. That would be a way to test that. But if it works like the GIF I just put in the chat, if that's actually how the stars work,
If they don't, you can Google the
then
words,
then
the language
then
for it, and no one will ever see that these constellations change in shape across the course of the night.
you could prove that. You could show the data.
Which is something that doesn't
We'll
happen.
have to get the data out.
Obviously, it doesn't happen. No one's ever seen a constellation morph its shape over the course of a night because the stars are moving closer and further apart.
Well, if the stars converge and diverge, you would see that. It'd be a good test if there's actually those constellations that span
And
both.
here's the other thing: if that was actually happening, then no equatorial mount would be able, because an equatorial mount will hold any star in the sky in the center of field of view across its entire span across the sky. If those stars were moving around, then it would be impossible for equatorial mount, which is just moving the telescope on one axis of rotation, to be able to hold that star in the center of the field of view of the lens for the entire night, from horizon to horizon. That wouldn't be possible, right? Because they'd be moving around.
Yeah, like they diverge that much. Come on, man. There's no way it's be imperceptible to the naked eye. First of all,
We're not talking about it. We're talking about a telescope on a very high zoom. It
yeah,
could be a telescope on a
and that's
100x zoom, where your
yeah,
field of
but
view
still,
is a tiny little spot in the sky.
yeah, but again, it doesn't just have that one star like completely just focused into that one single. No, it has multiple
Yeah,
stars
yeah.
there too as well, right?
For the brighter stars, yeah, you could zoom in enough to where you're
Right.
splitting it,
That
to
means
where you're
that
like if you zoom into Polaris close enough to where you can split it into Polaris A and Polaris B, you're just seeing the star of Polaris in your field of view.
again, you're missing my point. What I'm saying is that it has a big, regardless of, it's not diverging that much. It's imperceptible to the eye. The only time where you see it is when you have star trails.
That's just stupid. Sorry,
Call it what
because
you really want, but
the
it's
field of
true.
view on the star trails is way, way, way bigger than what we're talking about through a zoomed in telescope that's running
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
piece of
it's
Plus the
no way it's
astronomical
zoomed into like a
almanac.
freaking where it has the whole star in the lens. It always has that one star, and it has still got plenty of space for it to move, and you wouldn't even tell.
Well, you could tell because it'd move off the center frame, and it doesn't matter anyway because like you have
It's
astronomical
imperceptible.
almanacs that will place the star exactly in the sky, like down to arc seconds, which
And
is
this
like
is
you and
this
I
is
can't even perceive that.
This
yeah,
is
the
And
ridiculous.
astronomical
This is
almanac.
ridiculous because usually when they take pictures for it to actually stay in the same spot, they usually use some kind of program that pretty much gets what is in actual, which was the center. I mean, center to the actual location. Never would you have it where it's just raw footage where you can see, oh, it's always censored. No,
You just
this
need
is
a tracking mount that's moving at a sidereal rate, 15
not even
degrees
with
per hour. That's all you
not
need.
even with not even when they do the the sun is always there's a program always that censor it to a frame. It's never that it's
No, there's no
censored.
program. Look, there's telescopes, equatorial telescopes that were built on the turn of the century. They're completely mechanical. They
Yeah,
have one
but
axis of
if like
rotation
if
and they move at a sidereal rate. There's no
regardless
program
of
running.
regardless of it's not gonna shift that much where it lose track of it. It'll probably be off center. It wouldn't be always in the center. Now, if you were actually get the raw footages, in other words, a bunch of pictures taken from one to the other, I bet you it won't be censored. Only way
No,
they
because
censor it
because
is because they have a program that make sure that
okay,
that
look,
image is always at the center.
when Hubble was using the 60-inch or the 100-inch Hubble on the top of Mount Wilson, a purely mechanical equatorial mount, they were putting in a photographic plate and exposing it for the entire night, and the stars were not blurring. The stars were still pinpoints of light on the film.
What's the
Over the course of the entire night, the star was still a pinpoint of
red
light
herring?
on the film.
Who said anything about blurring?
If the star is moving, it would be
no,
blurring across the film.
No, it's not,
It would
bro.
leave a line.
Jeez,
It would leave
it's
a
you
line
have
across
no
the
idea,
film.
bro. Like if you
You wouldn't
take
have a pinpoint of
if you
light.
take a 24 hour photo from like what they did supposedly in FTE, right? You think that all the images was actually censored?
no, that's different. You don't.
How is
He's
that
talking about something
different?
different.
We're talking about on an equatorial mount that's tracking at the sidereal rate.
The mount
Which
is
is
no
what
shit, man. The mount,
on a
all it's
research
doing is
telescope,
just having
on a research grade telescope like Mount Wilson that has very precise movement. They would put a photographic plate in there and run it all night long, and that star would not move on where that position is on that plate.
yeah.
Because if it did, it would
From
leave a
your ears
streak
to
there.
God's,
It
from
wouldn't
your
leave a
mouth to
dot.
God's ears, bro.
What are you talking about? That's
Because
literally how
that shit's
all
never happened,
astronomy.
bro.
That's
You
how
can say
astronomy
whatever you
is
want.
done. What are you
You can
talking
say
about? You can
whatever
look
you
at the
want.
plates that have been
You
done
can say
throughout
whatever
the
you
20th
want.
century. I mean,
The
you're just
only
in
way,
denial. You don't even know the facts of it.
again, big ass telescope. That star is not the only thing you see there. It's a big ass space, whether left or right, a little shift. You're not gonna tell. You're not ever going to tell.
Oh
You
my god,
understand that it's
he
exposing on a
doesn't
piece of
understand.
film over
He
the
doesn't
course of
understand.
many hours. If that light source moved at all, then the film would streak. It wouldn't be a dot on the film. It would be a line.
Yeah, you guess you haven't. Go look it up, bro. I'm telling you, it does shift. Like those pictures that they take pictures from Saturn, same shit.
I just posted a picture. This is like this is cars moving with a long exposure, and you can see the streaks of light or the
No,
headlights and
duh.
tail lights moving. So the point is, if the star is moving in the field of view, you would get this effect.
Let me ask you this: do they do the same thing with Saturn?